here today with Steve Wilken, the author of Why Didn't You Have to Go to Vietnam, Daddy? This is the most honest book you'll ever read about the Vietnam War, the 1960s counterculture, and the drug culture. So let's welcome Steve. Steve, welcome to the Writers Lounge. It's so great to have you.
Well, thanks for having me.
Thank you. First, I would have to say that this is the most interesting political historical book I've ever read. Even the title is riveting. Why Did You Have to Go to Vietnam, Daddy? How did you come up with this title?
When I wrote chapter 3 of the book, that sequence about the draft I was talking about, and that line just came out. And when I wrote the line in its context, I said, that's the title.
So was your own father involved in the title in any way?
No, other than what's, there are references to my father in the book.
I've noticed.
Daddies are in the book.
Okay.
Daddies are a part of the book.
Okay. So basically, what do you want the reader to get from the book? What is your main message that you would ultimately like for the readers to get out of it?
Well, that depends on who that reader is. The book is really aimed at younger generations.
A younger generation. Would it be people who may think about getting involved in a war, or the anti-war crowd?
Just younger generations who have, in the short 30-some-odd years, 35 years since Vietnam, the story is lost already.
Mm-hmm.
What they're taught in school, and what they have heard from their daddy, which is biased. The story is just lost already in a short period of time, and that's why I really aim it at younger generations. I want them to understand where was their daddy, what was their daddy.
Okay.
You go ahead.
Okay. In the book, you say you have suppressed these memories for decades. Do you think you consciously suppressed them, or what made them come to the forefront?
There were some personal issues, some personal things in mind, but really it's just in the years immediately, as I talk about at the end of my book, in the years immediately following Vietnam, when I came home from Vietnam, we were treated really shabbily, and it was like you were literally wearing a scarlet letter. And for some that wasn't, maybe for some that wasn't a problem. For some it was. I chose simply to put it aside. After 2 or 3 years of walking around with a mark on your forehead, like, it was just too much of a social stigma to bear. So I just put it aside. And literally for 30 years, I never told anybody that it wasn't.
So you did it basically to be able to move forward with your life, have some
Yeah.
type of normalcy?
Yeah, and writing the book was definitely therapeutic for me. It was definitely helpful to me to get all that out after this length of time. A lot of it was my own family, to be honest. My own family always treated me just as bad as everybody else did.
So like the black sheep of the family?
Just like my going to, yeah, you use the analogy of black sheep, but it's just like they treated me just as bad as everybody else did. And so, you know, I don't know what else I can say there.
Let's see, a lot of Vietnam books are a lot more sugar-coated, a lot less candid. What made you decide to make it so hard-hitted?
This is the anti-Vietnam book.
It is.
To all the other Vietnam books on the market that or war books in general, where people, the author he's either exaggerating his own importance, romanticizing the war, or fictionalizing. And I didn't want to do that at all. From the very first words I wrote, this was to be an honest,
yes.
And I want honest in capitals. Honest. There's no, I don't hide anything.
It seemed very honest.
You know, there are thousands of other Vietnam veterans who I'm sure would want to write a book just like this if they had
The courage.
the courage. A lot of them would not want to admit that they did drugs in Vietnam to the extent we did, which is something I bring out in my book, which no other Vietnam book barely mentions. It's glossed over.
Yes.
And that was not true. And I state in my book that a lot of other Vietnam books are just being dishonest with the reader. And my book is the anti-Vietnam book, in the sense anti all the other Vietnam books on the market that are just written for commercial appeal. Maybe if I had followed their formula, you know, for commercial appeal, you'd sell more books. But it's bull. You know, one of the only Vietnam stories that I truly respect and admire is the movie Platoon from Oliver Stone, which was written on, or which is based on his own personal experiences as an infantryman in Vietnam. And anybody who's seen the movie knows how real and hard-hitting, and it's so real it's hard to watch from the point of a Vietnam veteran, because it just hits you right upside the head with its, you know, it just grabs you. And it's an absolutely great movie. And that's one of the few that I truly respect for its honesty.
And because your book is so hard-hitting, some people have gone so far as to call it hate literature and even anti-American. Was that your intent to make it so controversial?
No. People who make those comments either most likely haven't read the book. They're just glossing, picking out certain phrases. And as a matter of fact, for anyone who does read the book in its toto, those are not issues at all. I'm stating reality 38, 39, 40 years ago. They're looking at it from 2009.
Yes.
And there again, they don't want to admit the truth from that time. And a lot of people who lived during that time won't admit it either. It's buried. I hear comments all the time from other veterans that I've reopened old wounds. Why didn't I let sleeping dogs lie? They don't want their children to know the truth for a lot of them.
So it's just more popular to just glamorize it, not make it seem so harsh.
Sure.
Okay. Lots of people have their theories and reasons about the war. What do you think the reason for America's involvement in Vietnam was?
The communist boogeyman.
Communist boogeyman.
It was the early part of it. It goes all the way back to the history. I do go into the history right in chapter 1. It goes all the way back to the end of World War II when we had been allied with Ho Chi Minh and his forces against the Japanese. After World War II, we double-crossed Ho Chi Minh. We put the French back in. That caused another war. Ho Chi Minh won that war, defeated the French. By this time, it was the mid-50s. John Foster Dulles was Secretary of State. Mr. Lucifer himself.
Mr. Lucifer?
Yes, who wanted to kill every communist on the face of the earth, men, women, and children. That was his philosophy, and that's how he was, as Secretary of State, that's how he conducted American foreign policy, was that the only communist was a good